됐나?
Lo che sta.
Oh, no, stai. Listen to it. Oh, yeah. Namo Guru Be Namo Bedaya Namo Dharamaya Namo Sangaya Namo Guru Be Namo Bedaya Namo Dharamaya Namo Sangaya Namo Guru Be Namo Bedaya Namo Dharamaya Namo Sangaya Gaya Dea Laya Je Gaya Jaya Toya Gaya Ne Ravaya Karaya Kyoya Sara Boya Jaya Chaya Jaya Chaya Jaya Jaya Bo Gaya Chaya Loya Sanya Cha Saya Taya Jaya Ba Liraya So Den Jaya Namha Kar Saya Jaya Ben Den Jaya Jaya Loya Ma Jaya Ben Zama Kar Jaya Daya Loya Te Be Saya Nama Jaya Jaya Do Daya Boya Jaya Shar Oya Jaya Yoya So Shaya Jaya Jaya Gwen Yaraya Vaya Loya Jaya To Kaya Zaya Noya Vi Jaya Jaya Leya Kaya So Jaya Beya Beya Jaya Ramaya Meraya Jaya Beya Ko Toya Taya Jaya Be Taya Daya Loya Shaya Che Yaya Waya Kaya Naya Zoya Meya Toya Ta Jaya Yamaya Doya Be Naya Seya Jaya Shaya So Waya Shamaya Jaya 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 Soya De Saya Namah Jaya Cho Jaya Laya Jaya Bayamber Daya Toya Me Jaya Naya Saya Baye Laya Maya Jaya Daya Baya Jaya Jaya Ta Jaya Paraya Dhamaya Pa Samaya Jaya Maya Jaya Sho ye ne ye pa cha ye be ye so ye sha ye me ye te ndra ma ye te ye do ye la ye che che ye je ye pa ye be ta ye jo ye te ye she gwa ye bo ye che ye je la ye che ye je ye pa ye la da ye cha sam ba ta ye be ye ra ye ngo ye chu ye la ye ma ta ye bo ye che ye nam ye che che ye ku ka ye la che ye je ye je ye ne che ye tar ye cham ye be do ye je ye je ye ma ye la sa ye je cha ye ba ye to ye sa nam ye da ye se ye le ye ba ye so jo ye ko la cha ye no ye me ye ma ya ta ye ma ye na ye ma so ye ko ye ra ye ba ye ni se ye ti ye ba ye do me ye no ye te ye ba ye yo da ye so ye che ye ni sa ye bi ye ge ye wa ye te ye da ye ro ye wa ye ka ye pe ye da che ye ba ye che lo ye sa ye ta ye ba ye te ye bi ye ni ye bo ye do ye sa ye je ye kyo me ye che ye be ra ye che she ye re ye se che ye me ye che ye be wa ye bo ye jam ye be ya de ye bo ye ma ye le ya ma ye je ye sa ye be ye da ka ye je ye ke ye be so ye je ye so ye ka ye ba lo ye sa ye ta ye be sha ye lo ye so ye wa ye de me ye che ye be de ra ye che ye she ye re ye se che ye me ye che ye be wa ye bo ye ga ma ye be ya de ye bo ye ma ye le ya ma ye je sa ye be ya da ka ye je ye ke ye be so ye je ye so ye ka ye ba lo ye sa ye ta ye be sha ma ye la ye so ye ma ye de me ye che ye be te ra ye che ye she ye re ye se che ye me ye che ye be wa ye mo ye ja ye be ya de ye bo ye ma ye le ya ma je ye so ye be ye da ka ye je ye ke ye be so ye je ye so ye ka ye ba lo ye sa ye ta ye be ya ma lo ye so ye ma ye de pa la ye de ye so ye be la ye ma ye de ye bo ye che da ye so ye she ye wo ro pe me ye de ye yo ye la ka ye de ye che ye be wo ye ne ye ge te ko so ya to ya che mo ro ya che ya do so a ya de ya cha ya ve la ya ma ya de ya bo ya che da ya so ya ni ya kor pe ya me de ya yo ya la ka ya de ya che ya be bo ya ne ya ya so ya de cho ya dong ya te ya mo ya do ya che ya do sa pa la ya de ya cha ya be la ya ma ya re ya bo ya che da ya so ya ni ya kor pe ya me ya de ya ya la ka de ya che ya be go ya de ya so ya de sha ya cho ya ni ya be para ya do ya de ya bar yo ma ya sama ya ge ya me she ya ra ha ya pa ya ra ya she ma ya che ya ma ya ga na ma ya ke ya ngo ya ni so ya ra ya de ya she ya ya wa te sum na ja ya ve ya ma la ya sha ya che lo te ya ta ga ya te ya ga ya te ya ra ya ga ya te pa ra ya sha ya ga ya te bo ya de so te ya ta ga ya te ya ga ya te pa ra ya ga ya te pa ra ya sha ya ga ya te bo de so te ya ta ga ya te ya ga ya te pa ra ya ga ya te pa ra ya sha ya ga ya te bo de so Geshe Dorjee je kyungwa dam me te ne ve chen da chawa tenpa dorjee pe son cho yo ne ta ki te chan ten dra de me yo so ye be je ke me so cha re ro le ye ni de chen bon de san ye chen do me den bu wa ye ro kwen nam da chen lo shen bo yo e dam bu ro ra na ma de la ni ya da ya me sang je je dong zu je cho na shan kyo ba do da ne shab san ye da ge je yo je be so nam je ro la ben sha san je ro bar so sang je je dong zu je cho na shan kyo ba do da ne shab san ye da ge je yo je be so nam je ro la ben sha san je ro bar so sang je je dong zu je cho na la shan kyo ba do da ne shab san ye Agen Chun Jebe Sonam Dolo Geshe Tsultim Gyeltsen. Ola some Ajanagi Tatani Sanjitani Tendo, Tojalaname Bayantaba Zubi Sanji Kumbarum, Energy Tobra Shagu, Detobra Shavi Chedo, Tabe Churum, Jesenia, Bekono, Sanjuji Semji, say Sembegon, Assembly.
We must strive to accomplish Buddhahood for the sake of liberating infinite, kind, mother sentient beings. It's for that reason we should cultivate the altruistic motivation or bodhicitta motivation, and with that kind of motivation we should all participate in this teaching.
당아란 정말로 네 dunheta dungi jode gebar thane sanji kombotoye ita tendu nyegi yorwas.
I believe that all of us would like to get rid of suffering and its causes and accomplish complete enlightened state.
다시나 된데 되나 ngaran chamalokta nidare tengo bachile 그 dunki sabaye nanda ningbaina kanina 그 다드네 다 최신게 저 tengo bachile 마란저 네 두고비 준신 등해봐도 상당으로서.
As I often remind all of ourselves, whether we are new to Dharma study and practice, or whether we have been in Dharma for a while, all of us should often reflect upon the reasons why we need Dharma or spirituality in our life.
매기도 주신의 시 년개기니 단내시야다 로스엔데부터리기다 롱바지기 로스에 남베 로스엔데부터리다 다나기 롱바소스 로스엔데부터리 삼주야 말더니 짠 말이스.
We must not consider as if coming to this kind of teaching, and from my side giving you the teaching, and from your side attending the teaching, as if this is some kind of a Buddhist tradition or a tradition of some country that we need to just keep. We must not feel that way. It's not just a tradition that needs to be kind of kept by all of us.
아래에서다 최주야 등 해봐도 다라랑 수수길래 라나 간사 수수라는 해봐도 겁이 차고 그랬어.
The reasons why spirituality is something that we all need to cultivate and put in practice is because each of us personally, need spirituality, in our life.
가령에서나 말한도 참말로래 배 내부터 기부 다 löbo 동해 매봐 아니 들리기 참말로 땡데 여기 와서 다 사오금 무슨 인chen.
When we look deep down in our mind, and as well as in the minds of all sentient beings, down to the smallest insects, what do we really want is to be happy, to be peaceful, and to be free of stress, to be relaxed.
That thing you had the Karisana Raran Sosu and then lay Zamboji San, they namite that you don't want Devaki around Toyoris. That rang me gave Lady Sav in the day Namitele, they ran Dungeta, Mundebic, some of them, me give little tension, Yunguaris, they Hako.
So it's important for us to understand and recognize that what we are seeking deep down, peace, happiness, prosperity, and the best of everything. And what we really don't want, any kind of pain, problem, difficulty, suffering, they are all related to our own karmic actions. If we create and accumulate positive karmas or karmic actions, then such actions would bring us peace, happiness, and the goodness. On the other hand, if we create and accumulate bad karmas or negative karmic actions, then they will bring us unwanted pains, problems, and suffering.
Sapi later on Namiti, Ran Yom Imbate, Hakobos, Yendaki, Yanchimi, Chevakin of the Susipe, Miguel Simon, Tele and the Chevakin, Yendaki of the Shene, Shepzon of Chita. And they Susule Yantaba Shombaina, they would the Cuba join that they are going to numbers and attendants. She jump Susu, Rang Sapi late, Ran Minguars.
And a central true understanding law of karma and its outcomes is this, that each of us has personal responsibility in what we do, and what we do and what are brought by our actions. In other words, that when good things happen in our life, and when we do good things and good things happen in life, of course we need to understand that it is because of our own personal responsibility actions involved with these things that we have positive outcomes. It's not like we do good things and somebody out there, call it God or principle or whatever, is now happy and is giving us some kind of rewards. We should not think that way. On the other hand, when we do negative karmic actions and experience negative outcomes, again, we should not think as if there are others now who, bring bad things to us, as if they are punishing us, There is no such thing. What happens to us, what we experience in our life, both good and bad, are the outcomes of good and bad actions that each of us create and accumulate personally. So we have a personal responsibility and accountability for the karmas that we create and accumulate. So we experience different situations and outcomes in accordance with the type of karma, good and bad, that we create and accumulate.
That thing in Batan Tase, Pangarancho, Ranjum, Maris Carriers and Sanjay Kamdi Dikata, and those in the Lendik and Nugget Taki Tower, Sanjay Kamdi Matoyamas, Sonja Konga, Sunyares, Kendawa, Lay 7 debut and a conajo. Lay Kandaki, Zangi Kandiki Savina, the Namite, Zangite, Ralan Jungaris Kanaviris.
So what I just said is not something that I have cooked up. It's, as a matter of fact, what historical teacher Shakyamuni Buddha has said very clearly in his sutra, as Geshe quoted the lines from his memory. So basically, Buddha said that you reap the fruits according to the actions you perform. In other words, what experiences you go through are the outcomes of what kind of actions, in this case karmic actions, that you or we have performed. So when it comes to understanding and explaining the subtleties of karmic actions, only Buddha, a completely enlightened person, could do that.
Ranke lepenang emade saminti namite rang nyo mato ani atelen be yeng den yong gan bete mapte mara so pe thon ha kong do was karin sen pena modern of den le dab dashin shong be na kake be ani modern tik na yo be chong be yin ya kashi shiguyare, kashi kambay rabu chaguyare, kashi keke majivashene. Kope zubol mandab tani mavis and the Yungundu Chesa, Susi late, Susi Masa isn't the young late Masa isn't could debut was deshonore, Yenda to pay Shoguyate, laying a bay, debut Sinamdu Namiteran Yonshini, those summers, they hakodos, hakodos.
So the point I'm trying to make here is that each of us has individual and personal responsibility for what we do and what we experience, both good and bad. So we cannot blame others for the things happening to us and in our life. It is not like we do something good and out there somebody called God or Goddess or Principal is now happy and rewarding us, or we do something bad and somebody out there is so mad with us and now punishing us. It's not that. We experience good and bad outcomes in accordance with good and bad actions that we ourselves perform and accumulate. Now let me give you an example to illustrate the point how this is the case. Let's use bad karma as an example here. We can find plenty of examples how just because people have created different karmas, they experience different things, even if sometimes they are caught in the same situation. Let's think about a terrible accident. Okay, so there are cases, there could be, you're carpooling and there's a terrible accident, somebody dies, somebody is terribly injured, but somebody is just fine. Nothing has happened to him or her. So why is this the case? Everybody is in the same boat, so to speak, situation. So why somebody has to die and somebody is terribly injured and somebody is just fine, nothing happened? This is because something to do with the individual karma that each of the person has created and accumulated. So you experience the results according to the karmas that you have created and accumulated.
Nga jagan dusan ngi lakwa de dus chabres ngi nyande traba mango yoris ngi na ko sanje chomde de shabi to se lel mate be sen sanje chobi gina tiwa chagres nga laba chen cha yungu mares ina so se la mande sho te nge marang le ji sante garan me brecha taba yinda nga nyande so yor denki to mari sai ki kan yoris sanje chomde de semna tiwa chagres sep the yama so se shibilete so se nyamba mato.
Let me give you a personal example here. You all know about my story. I went to India and then I fell down. I broke my arm or my wrist. Okay. Now, in that situation, there were other monks sitting on the same platform as I was. Okay. So why did this happen to me? Okay. Why I was the only one who fell down and broke my wrist or the arm? Well, we cannot think of okay, Buddha is there to save everybody. Well, then why didn't Buddha save me? Save everybody else. Well, that doesn't seem to make sense, because what really Buddha said is, people, we experience different results according to the karmas that we ourselves create or have created and accumulated. So once we experience the result of the karma, Buddha or somebody cannot interfere into it. We have to experience the results of the karmas we have created, and Buddha cannot intervene in this and say, you know what, no, I will cancel it. He or she doesn't need to experience that. Buddha has no power and cannot do that. So it was my own karma which resulted in my experience of breaking my, arm, and whereas everybody else around me were just fine.
Sanji Kamdi de Rangtandi, Saba Chole, Niba Cho Koyer, the Ina Saba, Yungeso Kia Chudungi Chugu, Dan Lungier. Gana Sanji Kamdi de Doe Dung is Shaka Mr. Nito again. Chuni Debatry. Sanji Kamdi, they can draw Nash Dungi, the Shaka say Yamaris, Chui Tray Amaris.
And I have quoted this, very, popular quote, the words of the Buddha many times before, and the advanced students or the students who have been coming to teachings for a long time already know this. But for the sake of new students, let me quote Buddha's words again. Buddha Shakyamuni, the founding teacher of Buddhism, Buddha Dharma, said, Buddhas cannot wash away the negative karmas and delusions of sentient beings with some kind of a blessed water. They cannot do that. Buddhas, even if they want to, they cannot remove the sufferings of sentient beings as if they can pull the thorns which is pricking somebody's body. Buddha cannot remove the sufferings of sentient beings with their hands. And neither can Buddha transfer their realizations and positive karmas into sentient beings, as a gift. They cannot do that. Okay, so what can Buddha do now?
Shinji malo baje tangi tengi te tene te duje nyamsalane ane duje so kwa tangi so dongeli tran tabi kompa togu res kanang.
So if Buddhas cannot do all those things, so he laid out, Buddhas cannot wash our negativities and delusions with water, some kind of blessed water. They cannot remove all our pains and suffering literally with their hands. They cannot transfer their realizations into us like a gift, okay? Now what can Buddha do now is that Buddhas can show the true realities, the nature of true realities. And in other words, Buddha can show us the unmistaken paths, leading us to be able to see and experience the realities, true nature of realities, and then through our own efforts, following Buddha's paths or the teachings, that we as sentient beings will be and should be able to liberate ourselves from samsara, and we should be able to become enlightened beings or Buddhas. So that's the only way Buddha could help us. They can show us the path, and we make the decision to follow it or not follow it and cultivate it, and only then we could be helped or liberated.
Ponya tang gewa drupat ta ten na yores deba patong pon goya tang pon si tang ta na ye gewa dru goya tang du chi nyamse len chi chamal ta te kan na yores cha tenzo so si khya ba shen ta panglang te shinju malo ba so shen sha ba ina ane kwa dang so dong ri ton ta be komba thog res kan nang do.
So what can Buddha do for us sentient beings is show us the skillful means of the methods or the path that could help, that helps us to be free from samsara and to find a complete enlightened state. Now the path or the teachings of Buddha involve, teaching us about what are the negativities and delusions and how can we get rid of them or abandon them. What are the positive actions and qualities, and how can we cultivate them in our mind? So basically, Buddha has taught us the path and practice of abandonment and cultivation, and as we adopt this path and implement the Buddha's teachings, that is the way for us to be able to free ourselves from samsara and attain nirvana and attain enlightenment.
That thing, but they can't. Charan so kasi sandil le za ngema le ta sungchuli yonke ina kasi yimbas sanje kadang lama chota dre shenga wa man du shine imida kana ne sanje ge sung ta sore chebo jedi ge tona so bata denu sum ka denu sum ta ta ne lan la ba sum ane sa ta lam jirum ba mangbo kibu ta ten na yore sing ina to chu dibi na ning ge nang du res kana so imbo gar res na Digba point at Geo Drovani Matinangal, do risk on Nanson. Just that give a child with what.
And those of you who attended my teaching last Sunday, you may recall that as great Kadampa Geshe Tsultim in his public discourses said, that Shakyamuni Buddha taught many things. We can talk about as many as 84,000 discourses. All of them can be brought within what is called Tripitaka, or three baskets of teachings. And the contents of the three baskets of teachings are the three higher trainings: training in high ethics, training in high concentration, and training in high wisdom. But all of these Buddha's teachings can be summed up in two things. One, don't do the negativities, abandon them, and two, do the positive things.
Sanjay Kamdi the ranking Domdrip Jenta, Palang Siak, and Domdrip the Jidson, Digba Chamashi, Gopins Soberdrips. Digba Kandijin and Tani, Chishun Kandijin and Masasum. And then go at Chishun Kandijin the Dutu Shagris, Kalekali, that remained the Dutu Shagris Kanando.
Shakyamuni Buddha himself said it very clearly, kind of summarizing his own teachings. He said, never do or do not do any kind of negativity, insignificant or significant or small or big. Don't do any negativities. Accumulate the wealth of positive actions.
That he told Karigurusana, Tini Shene. Digba Masabashi, Goyanta for drip. That is Jenny rang sim, that's all carries the rang sim in Dugu Rescan.
So, by doing those two things, don't do negativities and do the positive things. And so, through that, what we should really try to do is rang sim the yonzu. We should thoroughly tame or subdue our own mind. Okay, that is the most important thing. We need to discipline, tame, or subdue our mind.
No. Then the Sanjay Temba is. That day any pay. That Narang, Sanjay Kamdin digging around Sota, subject D is Kanavata, Dog Duna, Dom of Javinata, D is Kananga.
And then Buddha concluded, he said, this is the teaching of Buddha, right? If we ask, what is the bottom line of Buddha's teachings? What is the essence of Buddha's teaching? Buddha himself said, well, we should tame or subdue our mind. So that is the essence. That is the bottom line of Buddha's teachings.
Rangi Luta Ngata Yisum me Yenda. Danye Pama Kandiki in a teller and never done much of it.
As I explained before many times, that we should see that, our actions of body, speech, and mind, or through our physical, verbal, and mental actions, we do not harm others.
That thing about the Judin Santango.
So that's what we need to think about in our everyday life.
May Yenda Santon and then to say that they say that Moda Co, the like couple in some germs. There's some in that. Do Naya didn't me Yen, sing it Tamjilla, Pember, what is it? Never see a point coverage.
So we should try to reflect on this kind of Buddha's teaching and see that in our everyday life, we do not bring harm to others through our physical, verbal, and mental actions. Now, we might kind of be able to do that in some sense, like in a very abstract notion of others, like we said, yeah, well, that I could do. But then we have in our mind, we said, like, what, but not that person, not her, not him, not they. Except these, yes, I can do it. Well, we make those exceptions, then, our practice is not complete. We have to train ourselves in such a way that we do not discriminate against any sentient being. There's nobody to make an exception to. We see that we do not bring harm to each and every sentient being through our actions of body, speech, and mind. That's what we're talking about.
So that never said it. That the touches somebody. Some Dukjay that Yungu Dangzi Maribal Ten Yungu that the Nijis Samba Sante, 2008, Holocon Yindo, Radungi can need a code.
Because of our grasping at the self, sometimes we might, feel this way rather very strongly. You know what? I can never, I can never let go of that particular person. Otherwise, I'm fine with all sentient beings. If we think in such a way, it's because of our grasping at self, and because of that grasping and that kind of a mindset, that we will find ourselves going round and round in samsara.
So that thing, Kali Kapu in a Tatele, challenges in a Mendutele Kati Chane. Never do Tinyambotene. That she told that power is.
We're not necessarily saying this is an easy thing to do. Maybe it involves a lot of challenges. But if we put up with a challenge, we try still, however difficult it is, to think that way and to act in accordance with our thought. If we try to do that, then we are really truly a courageous person.
Never say to somebody that's in condition at Tanzula where lost pepper drag. Some of the time, pepper do do the The challenges at that could the nation in the Zengu top go.
So, facing the challenges in such situations, not only that, we challenge ourselves not to bring any harm to, sentient beings, particularly those we are kind of making an exception, except them, That's where we have the real challenge, Not only that we don't harm them, but we also challenge ourselves on another level, so to speak, to bring benefit to them.
So that Rana singing and back in language shown a tele, 2000 pay, Maga maybe Toane, Koi and Teratang.
To give you a specific example, let's say if someone says something bad to us, not only that, we try not to go mad and upset and angry with the person, but we try to think kindly of the person and also try to praise the person, So we are not only that not harming him or returning harm to the person, but instead we are also bringing benefit. We are praising the person who is really bad-mouthing about us. So praising the person means we appreciate the kindness and goodness in that person. We say how nice the person has. He or she has such and such beautiful qualities. So if someone is always showing, unhappy face to one, or angry face, or frowning face, then we just try to kind of train ourselves to smile, to give smiling face to that person.
That thing told is that somebody hingy 2000 century time kill a shuri mapachik, somebody hingy gum that some Congress.
And in addition to doing such things, in everyday life, we try to cultivate, love and compassion to and for other sentient beings.
That things any pele Jimmy that Dubik Tangu Dina Tele any pege Kurans never share but share secure mato Kunju Le Merapanu Kunju never Zoya San Tony Munju Higama could never than to Higuris.
This is, as probably many of you already know, that there have been a series of peaceful protests in Tibet, across Tibet. So basically, Tibetans are saying, honestly, that what the Communist Chinese have done to them, the wrongs and the oppressions and the repressions they have brought, and so we want them to change it and correct it, but we are not thinking about, harming them in return.
All That rank same day the kitchen same the stories.
So the most important thing that we are talking about here is we have to focus on our own mind and tame our mind, train our mind, discipline our mind, subdue our mind, whatever words you choose. It's called same dual, means tame it, tame the mind.
And same thing is done when Tani. That day, give me show Karina tea, same with Jason Dan, Lutangani with Jason Dani. I show you this.
So why is that so important, central thing to tame our mind is when we don't tame our mind, things first start in our mind. When the mind thinks something negative, our body and speech, implement the negative thoughts. And when our mind is in a positive state, then our physical and verbal actions accordingly become positive. So everything starts in the mind. So mind is the forerunner of our actions. So that's why it's important to focus on training our mind. So if we want to use a metaphor, how important our mind is, it's just like the engine of our car. So when we don't, control our car and let it go where it wants to go, that's where we have accidents, and that's where we kill, ourselves and others. And that is something like the similar. If we let our mind go its way, usually goes a negative way, and that's why we create a lot of negativities and we experience negative outcomes.
So that same day, give it to the champion, Nami the Carseti, Nami the Ranata, you don't want you.
So on the other hand, if we take control of our driving or the car, right, we are mindful of our driving, then we will reach safely where we want to go, our destination. So like that, if we take charge of our mind and cultivate positive thinking, then these positive thoughts will lead to positive actions, and which bring us positive outcomes. Steering wheel.
Oh yeah, that thing you feel yes.
So it is like who is in control of the steering wheel here, right? Are we in control or something else? This is what we're talking about. Are we in charge of our mind or not?
Oh yeah. That thing is chamalok nganju 2000 tongkwe jingara ngaran zwebe ngaran chamalok san tongkwe jige te nenga khibis.
So these things I feel are really important for all of us to consider. As I always say, that as much as I'm speaking to you and teaching you, I'm also teaching myself and speaking to myself. So we all need to do that kind of thinking. We all need to focus on the mind and tame our mind.
No, no. That kasang jamten mat kama kyusashin dos tringas yagoyes.
So I'm going to go back to where we left off in the text and explained a little bit for another 10 minutes. We need to stop today early because today is an auspicious day on Tibetan calendar, and so we are going to do, a lot of people have commitments to do what is called chok offering, feast offering. So we are going to stop early today.
That kind of that Geshe okay. Ya me that country should marry man those that so much on my kanang was.
So now Geshe Changaba goes on to tell in his public discourses. It's not like somebody asked him a question, but he was, teaching publicly.
Kong Karasum Bresunata, Taraba Tang, Tangi Chamber Toba Shapalas, Ane Gitempa, Tada Mindiba Kill Love. All right, that I need to soon.
And Geshe Changaba said that in order to find liberation, nirvana, and Buddhahood, enlightenment, we have to train ourselves to behave in a way that our behaviors do not, I mean, that's literally I'm saying, so the explanation we're giving, that we behave differently from other behaviors of other people. So first we need to make a distinction and understand the difference between liberation or nirvana and enlightenment.
아니 다 코알이 들어가지 코알이 들어வே 아니 다 냥데들 코알이 들어네 다 냥데스도 냥에도 코알이 야네 델이 들어왔들 냥데스가 제자 답에 고마서는 도스지 그거래서 답한테 도시.
So the Tibetan term tarba, which literally means liberation, or oftentimes we use nirvana, what it really means is that liberation from samsara or cyclic existence. When we are free from samsara, then we can say we have attained nirvana or tarba or liberation. So we could free ourselves from samsara if we have completely abandoned delusions from our mind. So if we get rid of the delusive obscuration in our mind, free ourselves from delusions, then we find liberation. Another term for nirvana is called nyangde, a state beyond sorrow. The sorrow in this case refers to the samsara. So when we attain liberation, we have transcended the sorrow in the sense of delusions and samsara.
타바다 센서 최래 장바 연계 저거 나 하고 랑사하고 그래서 얘네 저랑서 아들이 냥데스 전에 띠그랑 장동주야 말했어. 년도지 탈바다 랑제 타바 년도지 곡바당 아니 랑제 좀 곡바서 당 아래 냥데스 년도지 냥데다 랑제 냥데스 도시 장동 그래서 산제구야 말했어. 내가 냥데 톱엔 탑아 년도장 랑제제 냥데 톱에 얘는 산지 공부 두고요 말이지.
So there are many different terms are being used, and those who have studied the Buddhism in depth in monastic universities, they can easily know as soon as the different terms are used. But given that we have not in a set kind of a setting or with that understanding, so maybe sometimes we might have difficulty understanding, the different terms being used here. Now the tarpa, which literally means liberation, nirvana or moksha, case, it's not just one kind, and we also use different terms to mean the same thing. As I said, nyangde, state beyond sorrow. Or we might use another term called the state of cessation, gokpa, And whatever the case may be, the tarba, liberation, it consists of, we can talk about three types of liberation. The liberation of the hearers, Shavakas, the liberation of the solitary realizers or Patika Buddhas, and then the liberation of the Bodhisattvas, which is a higher level liberation. So we could use the term to mean many different things, and we have to keep those things in our mind. And in this particular case, the liberation means the liberation of hearers and solitary realizers, or Sharvakas and Patika Buddhas. Those who have attained this kind of liberation, they have completely abandoned delusions. They are free from samsara for good, but they have not yet become Buddhas, not yet attained complete enlightened state.
다 탐지 챔버세. 탐지 챔버세에 다 상제 겸디니 다 해봐서 나면도 다 챔버다 해봐 줘버다. 아니 상제 탐지 챔버세에 또 상제 두주 그 안에 해봤더래. 아니 탐지 챔버세 그래서.
So then we talk about Tamche Khenpa, which means omniscient state. And this is where we talk about how an enlightened mind, Buddha's mind, is omniscient in the sense that it knows everything that exists.
탐지 첸세 탐지의 해자 탐지 제다와의 개념의 해자 단도신의 파시에는 안에 탐지 첸바 전에 탐지 첸바스.
So Tamche means all objects of knowledge. Omniscient wisdom, it knows all objects of knowledge and everything that exists. So everything that exists can be categorized into two kinds. There is what called ultimate reality, and then there is conventional reality. So within these two realities, we can include everything that exists, and Buddha's omniscient mind, Tamje Kemba Yishe, it sees all of that.
Tabe Gompa Toba Tan, Taba Chembe Gompa Toba Sheba, that Dinibo Toba Shebala, Dan Yitimba Tadata, Muntuba Geshes.
So, in order to attain liberation and omniscient state, which we may also call great liberation or the greatest liberation, according to the Geshe Chengawa, that we should behave very differently from the other behaviors or other people's behaviors.
That the Junse Karesana, their last. Then you think about Muntuba Goya Karesana, you think about numbness, Saint Gabriel Sanjay Gabriel says that. Nanzo, you think about Tanzogane, Saint the Sanjay Nichi Dani, Sanjay Gaben Zingers, and this that Delhi and this. The Taring to the Michigan, Sanjay Gabriel Zene, Senita, you don't Tomzan with that child.
So Geshe Chengawa says that our behavior should be different from those of worldly, worldly people or worldly sentient beings. And so then he goes and explains the difference. He said, the worldly people, what they tend to do is they cherish Buddhas because they, but somehow they disregard or they neglect sentient beings. They don't cherish sentient beings.
That he told Ibade, the Yele Rankepenzi.
So worldly people cherish Buddhas over sentient beings, and they don't really care much about sentient beings. Another thing is that worldly people cherish self over others. So they cherish the self very much, but then they neglect or they don't care about others.
That's somebody. Ral never Sheba Shanketan Pentaba Nish Nani, and the Pentaba the Kibran Zen never seen the Yavrando.
And then another thing is that worldly people, they reciprocate, kindness to those others who have been kind to them and benefited them, but they don't care about those who harm them.
That's it. That never say about Pendobanis, then never sing it, the Yavandoni Pendoba Pemata, right?
No.
That do me, there are differences. They do need Nani. And then rank and then desert, they were doing it.
And then worldly people, they are after what is called happiness, and they don't, how to say, Okay, because I saw an explanation, because this otherwise seems very counterintuitive for me. So the explanation given is, sometimes better not do literal translation, because often first we do the literal translation, wait for the explanation. So by the time we get the explanation, people already got a wrong understanding, I think. So anyway, I asked for explanation. What it means is that worldly people, they somehow cherish and are attached to the happiness over suffering.
Dungi Juma the Devan Juanis Dani, Devan Juna Gawashi, Dungi Juna Tati, Maga Chagin the was teaching her was.
This can take the Marane.
They made the Kanji, Takanji Teres, Ali Tendi Gu, some of the Tanguar was.
Okay, so the worldly people, they seek happiness and cherish happiness over suffering. They don't want suffering and they don't cherish suffering.
They do need and the Dangatong the Kartangurisana, they want the Dangatongur to Dungi Dangatang Marawas.
Okay, so if you're given a choice, you want happiness or unhappiness, the worldly people say, okay, I want happiness, not unhappiness.
That Walker Tele go dog go piece. Children get over that, Tangan Hema kept to say, by Ko Doni. Then Zingris.
And then Geshe Chekapa says, those of us Dharma practitioners, spiritual practitioners who are seeking liberation and enlightenment, now we should wish just the opposites of the worldly people. So, we should not behave in accordance with what the worldly people are desiring or wishing for, but we should just doing the opposite. And of Buddhas and sentient beings, we should learn to cherish sentient beings more than Buddhas.
Okay, let me
put it in a contrast. Worldly people cherish Buddhas more than sentient beings. They don't care about sentient beings. Now we as Dharma practitioners should learn to cherish sentient beings more than Buddhas. Okay, so our behavior is just the opposite. Worldly people cherish self over others. They don't care about others. But our behavior should be, we cherish others over the self, which is just the opposite. And worldly people cherish those who benefit them more than those who harm them. But we should learn to cherish those who harm us more than those who benefit us. It's just the opposite. And worldly people choose happiness over suffering, and we should choose suffering over happiness. That's the opposite. So why these are the things to do, and what the reasons? I will let you give time for you to reflect on this, and then next week we will talk about this.
Because this
is a very kind of a revolutionary way of thinking, a very profound, a very, how should I say, yes, revolutionary thinking. So there are 4 different ways of thinking, right? We went through. Maybe I should run quickly what we should be doing. We should learn to cherish sentient beings more than the Buddhas. We should learn to cherish others more than the self. We should learn to cherish those who harm us more than those who help us. And we should learn to cherish suffering over happiness. Of course, this is what we hear Geshe Chengaba talk about in public discourses, but of course his teachings are based on what Buddha said, originally. So, each of us can find really a lot of profundity in these messages, and so we should reflect on this, why these are the important things to do. Why should we behave very differently than the worldly people? So, we know that, people do consider Buddhas, more important and cherish Buddhas more than sentient beings. Isn't that true? Who is cherishing sentient beings more than the Buddhas? So why is that the case? Why just Geshe Chengaba tell us just to do the opposite? What are the reasons? Why is that so important? This is a revolutionary thinking, and I want to give you time to think about this.
Sentient
beings are very important to us, including those who are nasty and harmful to us. And there are reasons why we need to appreciate them and respect them, even those who are nasty to us. So as we said, we will stop early today, and we are going to do the sock offering right away, and we will stop the teaching there today.
Then Tingrans Chuchi should be given Zola in the Sanji temper but the Jurin and Nepata. And the Jawin of his within the shape of Taman Shakuzi happy temper, the Tushin and Bemelundu Yomata. And they actually don't get show upon the 27 incident Robata. Giddy come to the end of Montipico Sota the Hiene, Tenzin Sota the Bemelundu Yomashu.
By the power of our collective merit, may Dharma, the source of benefits and happiness, flourishes throughout the universe. May His Holiness the Dalai Lama and all other holy beings live long and be successful in fulfilling their visions benefiting sentient beings. May spiritual communities throughout the world and spiritual practitioners from all traditions remain healthy, harmonious, and be successful in fulfilling their spiritual aspirations. May these and other world environments be free of all kinds of unwanted pains and problems, and beings find peace, happiness, prosperity, and spirituality. Last but not least, we dedicate our merit for all kind mother sentient beings to be free from the fears and dangers of two types of mental obscuration, and maybe all become Buddhas soon. As I heard, I think Annie made an announcement already, and some of you know this, that since March 10th, there have been a series of peaceful demonstrations across Tibet against the repression of the Communist China, and thousands and tens and thousands of Tibetans across Tibet have did the peaceful protest, but Chinese have brought the power of military on them. And so we have made copies of letters that we would like you to send to our senators and representatives, asking them to ask the Beijing authorities not to repress the peaceful demonstrators. And according to the reports from Hong Kong, that 200 military vehicles were landed in the Tibetan capital city Lhasa, each of them carrying like 60 armed military soldiers, and so Lhasa is under curfew. And also in the other parts of the Tibet, there have been tens and thousands of people in peaceful demonstrations, and we don't know how many of them have been captured. According to the reports from Tibetan government exile, 80 confirmed deaths have been reported, and more news are coming up. And His Holiness the Dalai Lama at a press conference in India, he basically condemned the rule of terror and cultural genocide in Tibet. Those are his words. And His Holiness asked the international community that he said they have a moral responsibility to ask China to be a good host of the Olympics. His Holiness feels that the Beijing deserves to host the Olympics, but they should be a good host, So international community has a moral responsibility to ask China to stop the operation liberation of Tibetans. So he did a prayer at the Tibetan temple in Dharamsala with thousands of monks and Tibetans for the peace and security of the peaceful demonstrators in Tibet. And also at the Northwestern Chinese University in Langzhou, 500 Tibetan students, they sat in a peaceful protest on the campus, holding the banner saying democracy and human lives are precious, and they asked the Chinese authorities to stop, bloody crackdown on Tibetan protesters across Tibet. So we would like to request you to please, voice your concerns to our senators and congressmen and who else kick off so that Chinese stop bloody crackdown on the Tibetans in Tibet.
So
we have, made, I think, a lot of copies of the letters that are ready to be sent in the lobby with the addresses of the senators and congressmen or women, and so we request you to mail them.
So
the situations in Tibet are very tense, and so they have all risen up really peaceful protest, and so we would like to really solicit your sympathy and support for the Tibetans inside Tibet, and through you, your friends and family members, if there aren't enough copies of the letters, maybe you could make more copies and write a letter in your own words, and please, help, to save the lives of Tibetans inside Tibet.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think that's... Oh, yes, so there will be a talk offering, and usually this is where those of us who have commitment, we do this twice a month, and Geshe said that those who do not have commitment, and especially if you have you are in a rush or do other things, of course you can leave, or if you have time and you want to kind of sit and participate in this talk offering, so he welcomes you to sit with others.
Thank you. A few minutes. We stop.